How are you doing?
I'm good, man. You see, you get on easy.
Yes. Yes, I'm not the most technologically confident, but we made it.
But you gonna know this is your first IG live.
It is indeed, yes.
I feel so privileged right now. So
Good
so
honor.
yes, I know you have lots to do today.
That's all right.
I know you have lots and lots to do today, so I thank you so much for coming on so early and speaking with me, Beth.
No,
I
it's
truly, I, yes, I truly appreciate it. So quickly before we start, can you tell the people who you are? Of course, I know you, Beth Gallimore, PhD student, but can you tell the people quickly who you are and what you are doing in our lovely island?
yes, sure. So, yes, I'm Beth Gallimore. I'm a PhD student at King's College London in the UK, and
Yes.
I'm in Barbados at the moment because I'm conducting PhD research exploring mental health among young people in Barbados with a specific focus on stigma and help seeking. So. I'm recruiting participants for two studies that are contributing to my project for 18 to 24-year-olds. One's a survey that's looking at the attitudes and behaviours towards different mental health conditions among the 18 to 24-year-old population and how likely they would be to seek help. And then the other study is an interview for 18 to 24-year-olds who feel they have had lived experience of mental health difficulties or conditions, and talking about their experiences of stigma, how they may have sought help, what they think about the help sources available on the island. So yeah, I'm 2 years into this 3-year project. I've been to Barbados over the years and yeah, absolutely love it. I have a Caribbean background, so Caribbean mental health is a particular research interest and personal interest of mine. So that's a bit of a whirlwind.
Nice. It says someone here is called Hitter saying he's 20. They are 25. If any person would like to participate, they only have to DM you, right?
So they have to be between 18 to 24, and the reason for this, I guess,
Oh, to
age,
24. Oh, 24. Okay,
yeah,
okay, okay. 18,
yeah,
morning, Akila. Good morning, Akila. 18 to 24 years old. Go ahead.
yes, yes. So the reason for this age bracket is because I'm kind of working towards working in line with two definitions of young people. So one is by the WHO, which defines young people as 10 to 24, and the other is by someone called Jeffrey Arnett, whose definition of young people in his theory of emergent adulthood was 18 to 25, saying that it's a period of kind of identity exploration and self-development. So my study particularly is for 18 to 24-year-olds, and I've gone through the ethical process of Barbados Institutional Review Board and at my uni. So unfortunately, I have to stick to the 18 to 24 as that's what I've been approved to do for my study. But do follow my page because this will only be one of the first pieces of research I do. So I'm hoping that I'll do more where I can kind of broaden my age group. There'll be research in the future for hopefully older young people and also younger as well, because there's lots more to be done.
Nice, nice. Love it. Um, so my quick question, and then people you can start sending me questions. But my question is why is it important now? Why is it important now to be conducting a research like this on mental health in Barbados and the Caribbean? Why is it important to be doing it now? Why now?
I think the reason for why now is we need to start this as soon as possible. There's no reason to wait
Hmm.
on an important topic. And don't get me wrong, this has already been started. So I'm not saying I'm the first person to start this, but I think
Yeah, yeah, we get you. Correct.
we need to keep the momentum going because the longer we're kind of sitting on this, the worse it's going to get. I mean, we all, I think
Agree.
COVID kind of shone a bit of a light on it worldwide
It
about
did.
how much people are struggling. And it's kind of unfortunate that it took that event for maybe for some people to start taking it a bit more seriously. Um,
Hmm.
So I think, and we, in the Caribbean and as well in other places, the rates of suicide is increasing, and we're hearing about it a lot more frequently. And a leading factor contributing to suicide is mental health, particularly untreated and undiagnosed mental illness. So I think we need to really start addressing this now, and not just with research, but really kind of putting this research into practice and speaking to young people, making sure that they're heard. So yeah, I think now is as important than ever to start kind of talking about this and getting the research out there.
Oh, nice, nice. I love it. What is any challenges you faced while trying to do a research like this in Barbados? Did you face any challenges on your on the journey so far?
That's a good
More.
question. That's a really good question. I think something that I actually expected to be a challenge, which has not been as much of a challenge, which has been brilliant, is the overwhelming amount of interest for the interviews. I kind of presumed it would be quite difficult to get people to want to speak to me, particularly because I'm like a foreign person. Are these people going to trust me to talk to me about their experiences and stuff? But people seem to really just want to be able to kind of share their experience, and I think it's actually helped that I'm not from Barbados, because I've heard that actually then there's automatically they feel like they kind of know their privacy is going to be respected. It's unlikely I'm going to know their aunt and their family and friends and stuff. So I was expecting that to be more of a challenge than it was. I would say one challenge though I have encountered is a little bit with my recruiting, simply because obviously probably everyone in Barbados knows about the ethical issue that happened with the survey in Barbados, and because of that, I think there's been some caution with some institutions that have under 18s as well as adults. Even though I'm only looking at adults, there's a bit of caution about having my study advertised it in their institutions. So that's put a little bit of a barrier in the works, and I've have now had to go into like a lot more detail about how mine is ethically approved and how I will adhere to ethical approval and everything. So that's been a little bit of a struggle, but I'm so grateful people are continuing to still register interest in the survey and the interview. So yeah, I'd say they're kind of the two main things.
Nice. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, sister, and thanks for that. Some of the what are some of the things you gather from the research? I don't mean the data or anything. I mean you find that the youth don't want to speak to certain people. They express to you that they did not trust certain people. Um, did you find anything like that while conducting this research? You find that the young people, um, because you say that they might prefer to talk to you because you are not from here, which is absolutely true. But just let you know, by the way, that's absolutely true, because there's a big trust issue.
Mm-hmm.
To
Yeah,
me,
no, I've
in my opinion, sorry, in
no.
my opinion, I haven't carried out research, but from me living on the street, I find that the youth might prefer to talk to someone like you over a counselor or a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Yeah.
find that, and what do you feel is some of the reasons for that? Big yourself, SK. We talking mental health study in Barbados. Welcome to the Wake of the Greatness Morning Show. We're talking to Beth, PhD student, and doing some awesome research. So from your findings, Beth, in talking to the young people, because remember I said this is to me. Um, when I was younger as well, and especially in our climate in Barbados, I would prefer to talk to someone like you over my teacher or guidance counselor. And that was for me when I was young. Is it still the same way now?
From what I'm finding so far from the interviews I've done, completely, it's the same. I mean, I'm finding, I'm 25, so I'm only slightly outside of the age bracket of the young people I'm speaking to. And I'm seeing how much of a benefit that is, because I'm hearing so much about the caution, and actually not even caution, just the outright they won't talk to older people. There is such a fear and some people have really experienced judgment from speaking to the older generation. And that's not all of them. I mean, there's also been some who have said they've had like the best support from like their parents and such, but I found that a lot of them are saying that talking to older people is faced with judgment and a lot of kind of not an understanding and not validating that the issues that young people are going through are serious for them because they haven't experienced it themselves. So I'm definitely finding that there's there's this kind of barrier between young people speaking to the older generation, which I think, generationally, that just stems from older people didn't talk about mental health, and so I think I also think, we can't really blame a lot of the older generation for perhaps their way of thinking, but that doesn't mean the way of thinking you have now should be the way of thinking you have forever. So I think it's something that the older generation and we all need to continue working on, is being more accepting. Even if we might not understand something, that doesn't mean it's not a valid life experience for someone else and that it shouldn't be taken seriously. So I think I've definitely found that the kind of generational thing is a big factor. And then I would say another thing is also the young people are really worried and have again also experienced a break in trust and confidentiality when speaking to people about what they're going through. I've heard young people saying they've kind of spoken to someone in confidence, and then all of a sudden certain other people now know about what they spoke to when they thought it was going to be kept one-on-one. And so again, I think it's also another thing that we really need to take seriously, that if a young person is coming to you, confidence, maybe just saying they're struggling with this, they've gone through that, that shouldn't be then passed around to people who they didn't give that level of trust to. And I definitely think that's a factor, because I have had interest in my interviews, and several people have interviewed back being like, is this definitely confidential? My name's not going to be shared with people. Like the focus and the heaviness that's weighed on young people and making sure that their business isn't going to be shared is momentous. So I think there are two really big things that we really all need to kind of take very seriously when it comes to young people approaching us about their mental health.
Yeah, and Beth, is so many things that you yourself as the researcher have to unpack that is not even anything to do with data as yet. So like the attitudes of the person, the mental state of the persons, the reasons why they might be reluctant or they might be willing to overshare. Like so many different aspects away from the data that you will realize from dealing with 4 children. And one of the things you mentioned, having in my time, so me now 40, you 25, and I tell you in my time when I was a child, how I saw my teachers and then it's counselors and so on. And you are saying now from your research, you're finding that it's still very much so. Which I feel is sad, because majority of the children prefer not to speak to a guidance counselor. You understand? I want you to speak briefly, and thanks for coming on. I'm watching the clock all the time to make sure you're good and early to get on, right? To get you all the way over. I want you to speak briefly of the dangers of not having a research like this, not talking about mental health openly, and not doing the work in the early. I want you to speak to some of the dangers and implications that it can have.
I'd say there's many dangers, but a couple of the biggest ones that I personally feel at the moment that I'm going to touch on is that we're going to continue the problem if we don't really start addressing this now. I mean, I feel like now more than ever, probably, a light is being shone on how much our young people are struggling. And we're going to continue passing on this kind of generational trauma if we're not dealing with how our young people are feeling. So I think if we don't start addressing this now, this is only going to get worse. Young people are going to continue to suffer. And that goes into unemployment rates will go up, crime will go up, suicide rates will go up. This goes into so many almost every aspect of life if we don't start addressing this now. So I think one is that we really need to start making a difference now for it to have kind of longevity. Another thing that I think is an issue if we don't start talking about this is that we're also just going to kind of then not acknowledge young people's experiences and not make them feel validated. And for the young people that we are kind of speaking to are in our lives now, that's going to affect their confidence and self-esteem. And I think sometimes those factors aren't taken very seriously. If someone's a bit low in confidence, it's like, pick yourself up kind of thing, you know, let's just kind of, but actually we need to make sure that every young person feels validated. And then I think a last point that as well that I'm going to touch on is that if we don't start addressing this, young people are going to not trust people, and it's going to make people even more isolated. Now, COVID put people in an isolated position through force, through our lockdowns and what everything else. But what I'm finding is that young people who aren't speaking about their issues, who feel like they can't, they're isolating themselves. You might hear them say they have a peer group, but they don't feel comfortable to actually speak honestly about themselves with their peer groups. So actually, they're really isolated, and that then manifests in that they then end up holding themselves back in several aspects of life. So actually, we're not allowing young people to fulfill their potential if we're not starting to address this. So I think particularly, you know, with Caribbean mental health, one of the main reasons, as well as kind of my personal background from having a Caribbean heritage, is that there needs to be so much more published research about Caribbean mental health worldwide. You know, it really needs to be put on the map more. I mean, I had someone who I interviewed who said that they felt that my research would be really useful because as a student themselves, when they're being told, you know, let's kind of look for some papers and stuff on Caribbean mental health and on stigma, they're limited at what is out there as a published piece of research. So I think also, you know, England, if you think of, if you hear Barbados, what probably mostly comes to mind to a lot of people is rum and Rihanna and beaches. But actually, I think it can be put on the map for so much more than that. There is so many, I've met so many young people who are so inspiring, who are doing so much for mental health and are advocating for young people and for the community. And I think that needs to be put on the map for Barbados as well, and the Caribbean, how actually there is going to be some groundbreaking changes and research that comes out of this region. So yeah, that's a bit of a kind of sum.
Well, Ghost, yes, Beth, thank you so much. I love that response. I guess my next question to you is, and thanks for allowing me to pick your brain. Thank you so much. I know the million questions we have, but I'm just genuinely interested in topics like this. How common are mental health issues among our young people, and there's anywhere in the world, and then in the Caribbean? Because I don't want persons to think that this is some ostracized group or some special group. Because for me, because I'm seen as a normally functioning person, you understand? I'm seen as a normally functioning, high-standing person in society, and I might struggle with enough issues, but look very normal. You know what I mean? Extremely successful. It may look that way. You get me? But I may be struggling with mental health issues. So for me, Beth, this is extremely common because it could be. It means I feel majority of people they've got cousins, brothers, sisters, best friends that have got mental health issues, and I feel that some persons don't even know they have mental health issues because they will be accustomed being treated as there's something wrong with you. Like maybe the small, you idiot or you fool, slap on your head. That is how I'm being serious. Like, you know what I mean? Anybody in Barbados can tell you that's how it used to be. It's something wrong with you, you get called retarded. Like, this is how we raise up Beth in Barbados for decades. You understand? With those names. You understand? So that's making you aware of what we went through. If you are different, if something is wrong with you, if you're struggling with mental issues, he's an idiot, or he's stupid, or he's retarded. And I mean for like a time, this is how this was normalized within our
Mm,
communities, Beth. Speaking to each other this way was a
mm,
normal, everyday thing in our community,
mm.
which I feel is extremely damaging because the things and the words will even hurt a man like me to say. I know as rough as to get, I as tough as to get. But now you know when you get older and thinking about how we speak to each other, how we treat people with issues,
Mm.
you know, it is quite sad. So how common in Europe, in your opinion, and then in your professional opinion as well, how common are mental health issues, and how can we be aware of them, and how should we respond to persons with mental health issues?
Mm.
And
Yeah, no,
thank you, Rika. Rika said it starts from home. It starts from home and family members. And I see Gemini said words do hurt. Thanks for the response, people. Thanks for the response. I'm sure Beth love it. Brown Eyes said so true. So people are quite interactive this morning, Beth. So salutes to you. Thanks, people. Thanks, and keep the comments and questions and queries coming. Go ahead, Beth. Sorry.
no, not at all. So yeah, I'm going to address your question and then yeah, definitely touch back on the language because I think that's key to this. So yeah, first addressing how common are mental health problems. So if we're looking at firstly at globally, about 20% of young people in the adolescent age are going to experience a mental health issue in any given year. So that's 1 in 5 young people already.
Wait,
Then
wait. I was just going to tell you that's 1 in 5, 20% of all young people.
of all adolescents are going to
You
in
don't
any
think that
given
that
year.
high? You don't think that that high? That's to you. That's not really high. That's some
Oh
real
yeah.
high to me. You know, it's
Mm.
20%. You know, it's every 5 persons.
Mhm.
Every 5 persons, Beth, one person
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
just 5 persons. That's crazy. That's wow.
Mhm. And I think it's so important that we're looking at how common mental health issues are in young people and actually how common it is for the mental health problems that adults may have, how often it is that it starts in the youth. So a mental health problem that someone may have, that's 75% of mental health issues will have started by the age of 24. So we really need to start tackling this in young people because the majority of mental health issues will have originated before the age of 24. Now, they might have now manifested in another way, it's adulthood, but that's where they're starting. And so, in the Caribbean and, worldwide, mental health issues are climbing and they're recognized as not just the exact number, but one of the top non-communicable diseases. So it's a big issue. Now, one of the things my survey is looking at in particular, there's a question on it that's do you know anyone who's experienced mental health difficulties, and also have you yourself experienced mental health difficulties? And I purposefully chose the word difficulties and not conditions because firstly, due to the stigma, a lot of people are not going to have had a formal diagnosis. They're not going to want one. They're not going to want to see someone professional to get a formal diagnosis. And secondly, I wanted to highlight in my research how common it is to just experience mental health difficulties. If you ask anyone that you know, have you ever experienced a physical health difficulty? Have you ever been sick? I'm pretty sure nearly everyone is going to say, yeah, at some point in their life. So I wanted to capture how many people feel that they have experienced some kind of mental health difficulty. Now, I'm nowhere near finished my data collection yet, and I haven't got my full sample size, so I can't say that this is representative of the whole young people kind of population that I'm looking at. But so far, we're looking at about 90% of young people who've completed my survey, which is at least half of the sample size I'm looking for, who have said that they've experienced some kind of mental health difficulty. So way more of the majority of people who have contributed to my survey have said at some point in their life they've experienced a mental health difficulty. So why are we looking at them sideways so much? And I really want to speak a lot on the language that that you touched upon. I've had speaking with the young people, both kind of inside my research and outside, when I just kind of asked what do you think is the thought when people hear like young person who's mentally ill, or what's with mental illness? Like what is mental illness? And people have said, well, you're mentally ill, you're called mentally ill when you don't fit with social norms. And that's a big issue, because like it's kind of as if when a lot of people are thinking of mentally ill, they're picturing some kind of person. And again, with language, I'm hearing like they're picturing someone who's crazy. Now, this kind of like what is crazy? Why are we still using that type of language towards people where this is a common issue, and this is a normal issue to experience mental health difficulties is a completely normal thing, and we're continuing to look at it from a standpoint that we've looked at it from generations and generations and generations before. We have to really start working on changing that. So I think several of the young people that I've spoken to as well, and this echoes what some of the comments have said on here today, have spoken about how damaging the language is. And I think this is both to people who have experienced mental health difficulties, but like you say, just the language that's associated with it. People don't want to speak and admit that they've got a mental health difficulty, because they know the consequence of that. They know how they're going to be looked upon. They know they're probably going to lose friends. They're going to be seen as though they're a certain type of person. Like this is this basically is their whole identity. Is if they have a mental, that's what this person is associated with, not the million other things that make them up as a person. And I think it's just seen as someone who's kind of lower grade in society. And I think there's so much that everyone can do to start making a change of this. And I think the first thing is really changing and educating ourselves on the language that we're using. And it takes a lot of time to change language that you're using, because I mean, language is like that's something that's really difficult to change, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be. So I think really making a conscious effort and researching, educating. We're in a generation where we've got the easiest access to the internet ever. There's no reason why we can't educate ourselves on what language is appropriate and sensitive to use towards young people. And I think again, it's also as well looking at people's views towards mental health care. So, for example, I had a participant who said they knew someone who went and got treatment at your psychiatric hospital, and then as soon as people found that out, they were just cut off. They were like, nope, we are not associating with that person. And that's again a big problem, because now you're seeing people who might have been going through something, are seeking help for that, and are then being completely ostracized by the community. So I think, it's really important that we're starting to treat young people with mental health difficulties, and anyone with mental health difficulties, with a lot more patience and understanding and openness. Otherwise, we're going to continue going down a real downward slope with this issue.
Oh yes, Beth girl. It sounds like you have your work cut out for you. But I am happy that you are aware of the language. Sorry, Dwayne, because language is indeed important and a major factor. So I'm so happy that the young person you spoke to were able to be honest with you and told you about some of the things as they relate to language. And then you mentioned the thing about being put away from society. That is also true, sadly. And it's something that you mentioned that I'm so glad that you are aware of. I want people to be aware of. Like, we might simply treat people that are different as a mental health case, when in fact that person might not be a mental health case. So that's another gray area we have from lack of research, Beth. You understand? From lack of knowledge, from lack of knowing. Because that, while you were speaking, that popped in my head. And I was wondering, could I also be a person in the past that did that judged persons wrongfully because they were just different and lumped them with someone who's mentally ill and just saw all of them the same way. Well, this person might just be not like me. This person might
Mm,
just not be like me. You know, it's normal, it happens. And then this person might
mm,
indeed have an issue.
mm.
That just popped in my brain, and I feel that could be another issue.
Yeah, I'm so glad you touched on that actually as well, because one of the questions in my interview that I ask people about is, you know, before your own mental health difficulties, what was your view on mental health? And so
Yes,
often I find that people had completely opposing views to what they feel now that they've experienced it. And as someone's just said, we have all judged. We have all judged, whether that is maybe not towards mental health, but something that you have judged upon in the past, you probably don't judge upon now. And I think such a contributing factor to this is that, you know, if you haven't perhaps experienced certain things, you might cast judgment on it. So what I think we really need to start doing is exposing ourselves and allowing ourselves to engage with people who have mental health difficulties, so you have a better understanding. Because I think a lot of what ends up changing people's mentality towards how they view people with mental health difficulties is if they've either experienced it themselves, or if they end up finding that someone close to them has started to experience mental health difficulties. And it then really starts, you then start to question your own thinking. But I think, you know, having that kind of impact on your own life, being exposed to it a lot more, is what's going to make the change. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they don't even want to hear about mental health, mental illness. So they're going to continue having that same mindset. So we need more exposure. And frankly, that's why we need to create much more awareness and force the mental health conversation out there. So people are forced to be exposed to it. Otherwise, we're going to continue having that same mentality and that same judgment. And I think it's so good to, you know, recognize that when we have had these kind of preconceived notions, recognizing that actually, do you know what? I had those at the time, but I've grown from them. We're humans. We're growing and we're evolving, and that's what we need to do. No one's born perfect, whatever that is. But we have to be open to learning and developing, to helping improve our society. So yeah, I'm really glad you kind of brought that up, as I would have forgotten to touch on that.
yeah, no problem. It's just something that when you mentioned it rang off a bell in my mind. You know, might be looking at persons that are different as mental health persons that it might not be, and then you might have persons that look extremely normal who might be incredibly challenged mentally.
Hmm.
Because from hearing you speaking, it may not always be a case of where you can tell, but
Hmm.
just looking.
Yeah.
I mean, some cases might be able to tell, and then some persons might have learned to mask it because of the words we use towards those persons.
Hmm.
So
100%.
that is what rang off the bell in my head. Most have deep trauma and depression, but they're just scared to get help and love to feel accepted into their everyday life. Oh my God.
Mm.
Oh my God, Gemini Angel. That was from Gemini Angel. Gemini Angel, that is so true. Most people have deep trauma and depression, but they just feel scared to get help and love to feel accepted in everyday life.
Mm.
Wow,
Mm.
that's a statement in the comments from somebody,
Yeah.
and that is true. And you will find that.
Mm. No, that's powerful. I think that's really, really powerful. And it's so true. Particularly with young people, the pressure to just be accepted in their peer group, it will really mean that they end up hiding certain parts of their identity. And when it comes down to something like mental health, you know, this is not something that then people should be ostracized from their peer groups for. And I find that as well as speaking to young people, one thing that I found is there's a lot of pressure on education, a lot of pressure on getting a good education. And I know that you guys have the like a 11 plus test, right, based on the kind of British system that we have. And I've spoken to a lot of young people about how they felt an extreme amount of pressure from a young age to kind of focus on their education, but that this is then also meant that because they have this focus that they feel as though that they can't allow themselves to deal with their emotional well-being. And I think there needs to also stop being like there needs to be you can be one or the other. You can be educated and also have struggles as well, and be allowed to deal with them. And it's not, you know, you can be smart and you can be you can achieve so many great things, but still have difficulties. That doesn't mean, that doesn't limit you unless you don't deal with them, and then you'll start to feel the consequences. You know, I have at my university, I've got some serious top professors who have openly spoken about the mental health challenges, some serious mental health challenges that they've had in their lives. And I think we need to speak more about how you can achieve great things whilst having had mental health challenges in your life, rather than thinking if you've got some kind of mental health difficulty, you're a certain part of society that might limit you in life. So I think it's you know, really important as well that there's a focus in education starting from a young age, that not only is school important, not only is your family important, but you're important as well. Your mental well-being is important. That's the most important thing in life, because once you start to lose that, everything else really starts to crumble around you. So I think, yeah, from a young age, we need to start being educated that. And that, again, comes from our parents and everything. So we've got to start, yeah, educating from the top and letting it filter down.
Yes, Beth, is time pass. Of course, we can have lots more conversations. We can have lots and lots more conversations as you do more research. I am here every morning. So as we go on in the days, you and I will have more conversations. But for now, I want to thank you so much for passing through. I know you have a long day ahead. Thanks for doing the work in Barbados and the mental health study. Thanks for having the conversation with us. I know I'll make sure I post this live for a couple hours so persons can hear about some of the things you're doing. Quickly, before
No,
we say
thank
goodbye to you, you're welcome. You're welcome. Don't mention it. We love you here, man. We love what you're doing, and we appreciate you. Trust me, we truly appreciate you here. Before you go, Beth, I want any messages you would like to leave with the people of Barbados, as relates to mental health.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
any messages you would like to leave with us before you go?
I think a couple of very, very brief messages I would like to say to young people, and also just anyone who might be listening to today, who's kind of experienced challenges, is don't give up on yourself, like ever give up on yourself for anything. You're worth so much more than you will ever realize. And I think people, we're so self-critical, and with mental health and mental illness, it impacts your self-worth. I mean, that's one of the symptoms of many mental health conditions, is that it makes you start to kind of lower how you value yourself. So never give up on yourself. And no matter what society has taught you, it does get better. It really does. But you know, it's so hard to do these things on your own. So definitely, you know, look for the help that's out there. Speak to someone who you feel that you can trust, because it's going through like, you shouldn't go through life on your own. We weren't built to go through life on our own. We're social people. So this is not something that you need to feel like you have to navigate through on your own. And I would really just encourage people to seek help, even if you're not ready at the moment. Get yourself to a point where you are to make that step. And I just, you know, any young person who doesn't know kind of where to seek help, what to do, we have the internet. You can find it. If you're struggling with it, reach out on my page. I know some mental health resources out there in Barbados that I can recommend to you as well. And you know, I know we're all on our phones a lot and on social media. I know there's some amazing kind of organizations in Barbados that support mental health. There's Let's Unpack It, which is an incredible organization that spreads a lot of information and awareness on mental health. So that's Let's Unpack It. And then also, if you're a young person, 18 to 24, who you're not ready to seek help, but you might want to speak about your experiences and help promote awareness, contact me. I'm here until the end of November. So if you want to be a part of this research, I promise you it's my passion and my goal to make sure that this research really does make a difference. But yeah, to everyone listening out there, just really, really don't ever give up on yourself, and just continue to support those around you, and those who aren't close in your life, because we really all need help at one point or another. It can be any of us who goes through these difficulties. So yeah, and just thank you so much as well to you for having me on this morning. Yeah, I will be around, so we'll definitely keep in touch, and I'd love to be back and continue kind of talking on this topic and sharing more. So yeah, and thank you all so much for engaging and commenting. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and good morning, and again, our condolences. Of course, you see the comments. Gemini, we appreciate you. Of course, we appreciate you, Beth, like so much. You don't even know how much we appreciate you speaking to us. But it must big up Sheena Rose Inc. first. You know that is a world famous artist. Sorry, not artist. Artist. You know, one of the more sought after artists in the world. So a big up Sheena Rose Inc. for passing through. And Sheena, we was talking about mental health issues, and Sheena's the person that the superstars like Venus Williams and all the superstars, you know, will reference her work, speak about her great work. You understand? That is who Sheena Rose is. And although she's an extremely successful person, she would also openly speak about mental health. So she the person, Beth, where I realized that a person could be extremely successful, high functioning, and have mental health issues, and you not realize. So following Sheena, speaking to Sheena is one of the first times I realized that. What brought to my realization that people could be out here successful, people could be out here rich, people could be out here making major moves and suffering with mental health issues. You understand? So that let me know this thing common. This is not some weird thing. This is a common thing that a lot of people go through. You know what I mean? Like that's an opposition because she's extremely successful and will openly say, yes, Sluggy, I suffer with mental health issues. You get me? So that's what brought out to my mind, man. No. You could be a top of your game and struggling daily.
No, I will have to out and further. Yeah, but before I go, that's actually such a key point. I think it's so important to. It's research is proven. You know, so many high functioning, successful people really struggle, really struggle.
So true.
100%. But honestly, thank you ever so much. And yes,
enough love.
Thank you all. And
yes, make sure you following Sheena Rose Inc. Or Anxiety by Just Being Honest. No, Sheena, we love that you're being honest, but you're not just being honest, you are also helping to educate us and helping us to understand, listen, this is me. You all see me as this person, but the person you all don't see is also me. So you got that from someone like you, Sheena. So we love you for that. And Beth, thank you so much. We're going to have lots more conversations. Enjoy your day. It's no 18 past, and you soon have to get on to school in a couple minutes. But thank you. People, this was, yes, she said she will follow you too. That's good. It's good that when we can follow and have a conversation that we're talking about, Sheena. Thank you for that. Wake of the Greatness Morning Show, 6:30 a.m. every morning. You never know who's going to pass through. You never know who we're going to have a conversation with. But Mental Health Study _ Barbados. Make sure you're all following Mental Health Study _ Barbados. Follow them and look out for lots more conversations from your boy Uncle Sluggy and Beth, man. You know, a great young lady who just trying to put in the work and help make the world better, you know, and I am on the same exact mission. And little known fact, we are both musicians, you know what I mean? We are both musicians, so that's your extra plug on why you buy us. Big up all the musicians. You know, they used to say that we are weird, Beth. You know, like musicians, we used to get classed as weird. You know what I mean? So we both went through it, and we can speak on that in detail because there's a lot you can go into that in the different sectors, the different aspects of society where you might be doing this thing, and then people at school getting called weird, or those people, these people in this group or in this church that only like this thing getting called weird. We can unpack all of those things, man. But big up everybody for tuning in. Thanks for passing through. Beth, you see how early people get up with us? You see the love? You see how early people get out of bed? I love it,
Oh,
Bob. Peace, people. And we out.
take care.